but we really want to strive for being positive whenever we get an opportunity. So that means reinforcing good things. So whenever you see something that's done right, to celebrate that, to measure that. I think a good phrase that I've heard over the years is things that get measured get done.
Welcome to the Jamodi Podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is Jamodi, just a matter of doing it. Today we are joined by the head men's basketball coach of Dallas Baptist University, Blake Flickner. Coach Flickner has a record of 304 wins and only 191 losses in his 18 years at DBU. He's led the Patriots to a pair of Heartland Conference regular season titles and 2 Heartland Tournament championships. Coach Flickner is also a 2-time Heartland Conference Coach of the Year in 2009 and 2017. The Patriots are just one of 7 teams in the nation to reach the NCAA postseason each of the last 5 seasons. In 2001, Coach Flickner earned a Master of Arts degree in Christian education at Dallas Theological Seminary. Before we hear from Coach, take a moment to subscribe to our podcast and follow us on social media at Jamodi Podcast. Thank you so much for giving up your time to talk hoops today.
Absolutely. Love to do it with you.
Awesome. How's everything going for you right now?
Yeah, it's going well. We're in workouts, preseason workouts, and the team is bonding. It seems to have pretty good chemistry going right now. Everybody's working pretty hard. For the most part, fairly healthy. A few minor things that we're working through. As always, there's always something, but yeah, doing well. Family's good. So
what's the daily routine look like for some of your guys right now?
Yeah, so they've got most of their classes are in the morning. We have a few situations where a guy has an evening class, but generally we practice in the afternoon. So they've got classes in the morning. Sometimes some small groups come in. We've got at least a 30 or 45-minute group where they come in and 1, 2, 3, 4 guys at a time to either get some shots up or watch some extra film during the morning, kind of around their class schedule when they have a break. On Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, they're lifting with our strength coach for an hour in the weight room. Tuesday, Thursday afternoons, they spend another 45 minutes with our strength coach doing some plyometric type things. And then we get 4 hours of basketball a week. So we've been doing that Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, Wednesdays, strictly weights and Bible study on Wednesdays.
So with 4 hours that you have to spend your season, in a month and a half or a month, whenever you guys start, what's the focus of those 4 hours for you? Is it mainly individual, or are you starting to build some of the layers for what you guys do offensively or defensively?
Yeah, in the past, it's emphasized individual fundamentals more than the team layers. Although we've always kind of incorporated some of those things in early on. This year's been a little bit different. We've done more of the team concepts and layers, partly because we have a international trip planned coming up here in just a few weeks, and so we're going to Spain as a team, and we'll spend a week in Spain during our fall break, and so that's accelerated our timeline ahead a little bit. So we're already going up and down 5-on-5, putting in broad concepts for defense and offense both, without as much breakdown as we normally would do. So we're doing a lot of teaching on film and then just trying to get some conditioning while we play and try and play with the concepts that we want to eventually play with and then correct as we go through film. So that's been a little bit of a different preseason than our normal rhythm.
I mean, what do you prefer? You prefer to have more of the skill work, maybe layering in some things as you go, rather than almost a holistic approach of this is the whole and we're going to work our way through it. What do you prefer?
Yeah, I like the individual things because I'm such a big believer in teaching, development. You got to have the fundamentals. You got to be able to do different things. But I tell you, the guys are loving it. I've been enjoying it. And even before we had this situation that's kind of forced us into this timetable, I've been talking to some other coaches that play a lot more than we had in the fall, and just kind of been considering, okay, what does that look like? How do you do that in a way that is productive and still get the teaching in that we want to do. So it's not just, rolling the balls out and guys are hooping, but how do we get the teaching that we want to have in? So for us, that's looked like more film. We're trying to continue to put more film in their hands and do as much as the NSA will allow us together with the coaches. But we've also got a platform where they've just got access to every practice, and then we've got clips that are, if you take a shot or you make a turnover or you get a steal or you get an assist, any possession that ends with you getting one of those box score type things, you've got an edit that's just got those. So, just an hour or so after practice, they can watch it on their phone and or on their laptop or whatever. So we, obviously want their academics to come first and recovery and all that stuff. But I've been surprised at how much film they've watched when it's just voluntary on their own for them to do it. It's been more this year than in the past.
Interesting. One, they like playing more, right? Mm-hmm. That's, but also, yeah, the fact that like they're getting into that optional, if you will, film mm-hmm. instead of just doing the mandated stuff. I think that's an interesting point.
Yeah, it's been good. I think it's been a good rhythm, and I like where we're at so far.
I do. I want to celebrate you on a lot of schools do these ID camps. Where they invite high school players in and you get to work out and do some things. A couple things I was able to bring my stepson to one of your sets. He's just a sophomore, so we knew he was going to be one of the younger ones. And, we don't do a ton of ball screen work. So as soon as I saw that action happen, I was like, okay, well, it's good for him. But his natural, he's not going to be able to recognize I've done this a lot before. But all that to say, walking into it, I was super impressed, one, with the organization of it. You guys started on time. You were there. Like that just really, I kind of walked into it thinking the assistants were there, but that they would really run the thing. But the fact that you're the head coach, you were there. And then again, to celebrate, it's an hour-long workout. You guys meet at half court and you share the gospel right off the bat. Like that's what you lead with. Keeping the main thing. So I was just sitting there thinking, this is so cool. I wish more people could see this at a big time college program. The main thing, that's what we're starting out with.
Yeah, that's, we want everybody that comes to one of our camps to have at least heard the gospel, even if it's just a 2 or 3, 4 minute quick broad summary of the Bible's message. That's something that's unique about us. And so I love to just put that out there. Hopefully, maybe for somebody it's new, and then offer the opportunity to ask more questions or reach out to us more if they want any follow up on that. But then we try and maximize that hour from a basketball standpoint too, and move into things. When I was growing up, I went to a lot of what felt like babysitting camps where you play tag and Pac-Man and there's swim time and video game time, and we're going to watch these highlight films of Michael Jordan and things. And you didn't actually, I told my dad one time, I played more basketball at home than when I went to basketball camp. And so I don't want our camps to be that. If you're going to pay money and come, let's get some work done. So we try and give them as much as we possibly can in a short period of time.
I loved it too, because to me, it shows as a coach, or if I'm a player, it shows what college coaches view as important, what skills are important for you to have. I mean, you start out with jump rope. You start out with, just so you know, that's influenced our second period athletics here quite a bit, because it's watching you take them through all those movements. It's kind of funny, as I get older, I'm forgetting some of the things that I did as a player that I feel like was a separator. I used to jump rope a ton. Because Coach Wojciechowski one time, when I taught, he was an assistant at Duke. He was actually recruiting Bracy Wright and Darren Williams, but my high school coach knew I was such a big Duke fan. He's like, "Do you want to talk to Woj?" And I was like, "Heck yeah!" And I asked him, "What do you do for quick feet?" He said, "You got to jump rope every day." So it was a big thing, but I've forgotten that over the years. So I go to your workout and I see you start gospel, jump rope, and then 2-ball, and so it's just validating, some things that we do well, but all the things that I can't forget to add in. So that was cool.
Good. Yeah, it's simple. Jump rope's not an expensive tool. It's not flashy. There's no blinking lights or anything like that. But man, you can't play basketball if you can't move. And over time, we try and do it throughout the entire season. And from a guy's freshman year to their senior year, we really believe if you'll just do this consistently, you'll have better feet and you'll move better. And so we think that's really important.
And I like the fact that you're having them do that. You're the one saying that we're going to give you our time to jump rope instead of what I same with shooting. We really want you to become better shooters. So on your own, you better be doing this. We want you to be better jump rope. So on your own, you better. And what are the odds? The 1 or 2 percenters may be doing it, but the rest of the guys won't. Especially if we want them to still be, like you said, students and have a life. And favorite culture building activity that you guys do?
I'll tell you one thing we started doing this spring that's been really profitable is just, hey, we're going to go for a walk, and you can't talk basketball. So we've got a walking trail that kind of goes back to the woods and things on campus, and we'll just say, hey, tomorrow, what time when you have break, let's go for a walk. No basketball talk. And it's just, relationship building, trying to have a good connection, know what's going on with those guys. By the time everybody comes to practice, it's go, get dressed, hurry, get out on the court, let's start working on this. And you may not realize that somebody's depressed, and dealing with something off the court or got some stuff going on. So we tried to open the door for that. When school started back this fall, it was still really hot. And so to go for a walk, you'd want to do it really early in the morning. So I've also thrown out there, hey, you want to go for a walk? Or you want to go play ping pong or pool tomorrow? And so we can just have some time together to have a little short conversation. So if you can just do one guy a day or every other day, and if each guy on our staff is doing that, and then we can try and go through the team and make those connections, hopefully fairly often. So every couple of weeks, they're getting to spend some one-on-one time with a coach or with the head coach, and we can then update our staff, with what things we learn, during those times. So that's been really, really profitable. Another thing that we've done just within the team is we call them life maps. But we're going to, hey, you got 30 minutes and, it's a significant chunk of time, but tell me about your family heritage. Tell me about some high times you've had in your life. Tell me about some hard times you've had in your life. Tell me about some heroes that really influenced you growing up. Tell me about a way that you've seen the hand of God work in your life. And if we can just go through those 5 things and ask questions, and guys put together PowerPoints and show pictures, and that's been really good just to kind of know, wow, I had no idea, this guy's father passed away when he was 12 years old, or, whatever it is, or different things that people have been through. And it really helps draw the team closer together and makes it a bonding time.
And both of those are great. I love how simple the walk idea is. Yeah, just go for a walk, but the no basketball thing, that's the huge piece, because
that's more for the coaches.
Right, because with our players, how much of our interaction with them is based on the game or around the game. And so, but if we want to truly be transformational, we have to know the entire person. How do the players react? How are they during those walks? Is it a little slow at first with getting stuff out of them, and then how do they go?
Yeah, so now it's become a little bit more natural, but early on, the first time we started doing that, it was like, what? Am I in trouble? Why are we going for a walk? But the great thing about walking is if you have a couple of minutes of quiet, it feels a little bit less awkward. If you're just sitting in the office staring at each other, it's like they feel like they're in the principal's office. And, if there's a pause in the conversation, it feels really awkward. But if you're walking, it's all right. We're doing something. Or if you're playing ping pong or, whatever, it's a lot less awkward that way. And then it allows time for questions to come out or people to then open up a little bit more.
With your life maps, with those talks, how you said 30 minutes, how do you usually organize it with, how many players are going at a certain time? How much time do you give them ahead to think about it?
Yeah, so they'll have a week or 2 or 3 weeks to prepare. We'll maybe sign up for the next 3 or 4 weeks when we've done this in the past, and then say, hey, on this day, these 2 guys are going. We got an hour block set aside, so we'll just get through 2 guys that day, and give them an opportunity so they can prepare, maybe put a PowerPoint or something together, bring some pictures to share. I encourage them to do that. I think visual aids helps everybody. It helps the person who's speaking, but it also helps the people that are listening to engage a little bit. So if you can make it visual and just, focus on those 5 things: heritage, heroes, high times, hard times, hand of God. That helps give you some hooks to kind of hang your thoughts on, and makes it flow pretty easy. And it's amazing when people are talking about themselves. They don't want to get up and give a speech for 2 minutes, but you can get guys going for 20 minutes easy.
That's what I was going to ask is, man, 30 minutes is a long time for a young man to stand up there and speak in front of a group. They usually take, like 15, 20, even 30 minutes.
Yeah, they think it's going to be really hard, but once they just start talking and you're just telling about your family, and it usually goes. I mean, we're often sometimes, all right, it's time to cut it. Let's move on to the next guy. And we leave time for questions. They may actually only be presenting for 15 or 20 minutes, and then there's some questions, Q&A, and follow up on maybe some things that they said. And so it's more conversational, and it flows pretty well.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Ballology. What's your BSA score? The Ballology Skills Assessment is the only verified skills metric endorsed by the NAIA, NJCAA, and a growing number of NCAA coaches to discover and develop the best talent for your team. This 4-minute, 40-shot test can be taken free today on the Ballology mobile app. Elevate your game. What's one thing that, besides just how beautiful your campus is with the lake and everything, it's one of my favorite places to visit. What's one thing that makes your program different?
Yeah, so everybody's trying to win basketball games, and we want to do that. And there's certain things on the court that maybe are slightly different, but for the most part, most on court things you can find somewhere else. There may be a few different varieties or versions, but somebody's probably doing something pretty similar offensively or defensively. We all steal from other coaches, and even if somebody comes up with a novel idea, by the next year there's a bunch more teams that are doing that. But one thing that I think we say we want to be very different in, and so we strive for, is one, we want to be running our program with integrity. We're all trying to win, but let's do it the right way. And that means, we need to follow NCAA policies for us, whether I think it's a dumb rule or not, whether I like it or not, that's irrelevant. If there's a way to manipulate around it, no, what's the intent? What's the spirit of the rule? How can we follow within that? And sometimes that gets hard, because there are times that I think, man, we want to build some work ethic here, and they're cutting our hours back. We have only got, so much time. And so there's conflict there, but you've got to say, no, this, it doesn't matter what everybody else is doing. We want to do it right. And so at times that's a struggle, but that's something we fight for. And that's something we want. We want to do it with integrity. And then the other thing that I think is just really unique about our program, even amongst other quote unquote Christian schools, is how intentional we are in the mentoring, or what we call discipleship process. We want that to be something that's really unique in our program. So, we're going to get to know guys. We're going to ask them personal questions. We want to know who they're dating. We read a book this summer called Boundaries in Dating. And, we're in small groups, 2, 3, 4 guys with a coach. And, we're talking about, what to look for, what to avoid, how do you handle dating relationships? And then we're always taking it back to the Bible, and, looking to connect, what does God's word said, what's the wisdom? How can we apply that to our situation, our life? What is this truth that we can learn from? And our guys are at varying stages and levels of spiritual maturity. So that looks different, with some guys. For some guys, we're not forcing anyone to believe anything, but we're trying to be persuasive and compelling for what I believe is life-changing and true. And, so we're presenting that. And then other guys that, man, they're committed to a Christian walk and a Christian faith, but they need somebody to come alongside and help them learn how to grow, be maybe a little more consistent in what they say they believe. And then other guys are studs, and they just need to be, let loose to lead and to encourage others, and to step out and take more of a leadership role, spiritually. So, that discipleship aspect, I think, is something that's really unique. I mean, we're having a discipleship meeting once a week, and I tell the guys, you better have your Bible when you come, because if this is just to come hear me talk, that that's nothing special. You can get that anywhere, but if we're going to hear something that's really unique, let's hear from God. And so let's open our Bibles and let's study it together. And that's uncomfortable for some guys, but that's something that's unique. We tell guys in the recruiting process, this is what it's all about. And we've had guys that choose to come here that aren't Christians, that aren't interested in that, um, but we're their best, academic and athletic opportunity, and so they still want to come. But they know this is what's going to happen. This is what we're going to be doing, and we need to embrace that and not fight us on that, or you're not going to be happy here.
Man, like I feel like I'm listening to somebody talk about grapevine faith, because it's refreshing to hear at your level that the Baptist or the Christian aspect or the private aspect of your college just isn't in name only, that you're living it out, because there's a ton of private schools, there's a ton of Christian schools, but man, living it out and setting those standards, it's challenging, because I've always felt like at Faith, it makes that circle of players that we could get, or that come to Faith, or that come to our competitors, that it might be a little bit different. But like we do have some young men and young women here at our school that their parents are believers, but they may not be. And I've always wondered, how can I encourage those that are really strong in their faith just to lead, like you said? How can we continue to move along those that may be questioning? But then my biggest struggle is the ones that clearly they don't have a relationship. How do you keep from, so here's my question, long way to get to it. How do you keep from completely alienating them and pushing them farther away? Because you're right. If we're being intentional and it is being infused in everything we do, they're going to feel that tension every day.
Yeah, that's not an easy question. And, I'd go back to the integrity aspect. We want to hopefully walk the walk. And then when we mess up or fall short, be quick to confess and own that, so that they see some consistency. That's big. And that's just important as a parent. That's important as a coach in any sphere. For us at the college level, it starts in the recruiting process. We're selling this, we're presenting this is who we are. And so that's weeding people out, who wants that, who doesn't want that, kind of identifying what are the guys that are fits for our program on the front end. But then when we get in, DBU is really big on servant leadership. That's part of our mission statement in developing students that are servant leaders. And part of the leadership literature on servant leadership means that this is a persuasive style of leaders, not just authoritarian. I say, you do.
Yeah.
I want to present a compelling piece that gets your buy-in, so that it's an internally motivated belief, not just you're doing it because you have to and it's drudgery and I hate it. And,
intrinsic over extrinsic.
Yeah, we want that intrinsic motivation. And so that comes to when we're talking about basketball. I'm trying to get them to buy. This is why we're doing this. This is why it's good for us. This is why it's going to be good for you. Hey, so and so, I don't want you to dribble off the ball screens. Your thing is to pass and cut and move, and you need to be great at getting yourself open off the ball with your off ball movement, because when you start dribbling too much, you're turning the ball over. So we'll work on that in the off season. We'll work on that before and after practice. But when we're in games, let's limit it to this, maybe what feels like a smaller role, but we got to present, because guys they want to be Kyrie. They want to be, I want to do all the things that I see other people do. But you got to remember, there are really, really good players that are really, really good at one or two things. Look at Klay Thompson. He doesn't dribble it the same way Steph Curry does, but he's an elite player. Or Tyler Hero's playing in the NBA, but he's not over dribbling the basketball. And some guys need to be good at the things they're good at, and you can still be a really good player at a really high level without doing every single thing. Just do what you do really well. So we're selling this. We got to get them to buy in, not just do it, you know, sometimes we have to say that, come, you can't play, come sit down because you're not buying in. But what I want is their buy-in. And that's what we're after. And that comes to when we're talking faith too. I'm not trying to force them to believe, but I'm trying to present what I believe is true, demonstrate how it's true, demonstrate how it's effective, demonstrate how it applies, and hopefully a way that's compelling and persuasive. And then we pray, because when it comes to faith, ultimately this is the type of thing that happens in an unseen spiritual realm where the Holy Spirit's doing something that we can't even manipulate and control. So we pray about it and then we let it go. And we've had guys before. We had a guy from Europe who was one of these guys that knew he was not a Christian. He wasn't even a nominal Christian. He knew he was not a Christian, but he chose DBU because we were basically his best college option. And he was open minded about it. Hey, this will be like a Western Civ class. I'll get to experience, Christianity. But when he got here early on, he was like, whoa, this is different than what I'm used to. And he thought he was in a cult,
Yeah.
And so what we did with him was come to my house. Let's have some dinner. Let's not talk, faith at all. Let's just be people and develop a relationship and just try and bridge that. And eventually he got more comfortable, and we've got a great relationship. Really thankful for the man that he is, but it was hard for him those first few weeks because it is different.
Personal question for you.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I do a life group, and it was just the men talking, meeting last week. And I think we're going through Jude, that one chapter in Jude, it was talking about prayer. And I just asked the question to the guys about their prayer life, because it's a part of I'm pretty consistent getting in the Word, but with prayer, I'm a little hit or miss, and I'm struggling with that. In your life, what are your habits, or what's your prayer life like? And anything you're willing to share.
Yeah. I think it's a rare thing to find anyone who feels like, oh yeah, I'm killing it when it comes to prayer.
Straight connection.
Be, probably somewhat unusual, but it is, really important. I think if we believe that God is real and that He's there, and that's a true belief, then it would reflect itself, in this relationship that is not just academic study. And that's where I fall too. Is I enjoy studying the Bible. I think one of my giftings is teaching, and I don't mind studying and learning new things. There's an academic aspect to my personality that goes there. But am I translating that academic pursuit into heart change? Am I translating that into relationship with God through prayer? And that's sometimes a lacking area. So I can relate to that. Ways that we try and fight that is to build some rhythm into our routine. So even just things with our family, things with our team. And I tell our team, like, public prayer in this way that's not prayer. Like that, this is examples that, hopefully you're doing on your own. This is to maybe teach. When we pray in church, or we pray as a team, or we pray, publicly, that's for one another. And it is, we're speaking to the Lord. But it's a little bit of a teaching opportunity, but the really impactful relationship happens personally in one-on-one, quiet, individual times with the Lord. And that's what I think most people feel like is rare for them. And I can attest to that myself. And so we try and build those rhythms into our life to create some habits. But
automatically the challenge with that is with our schedules.
Mm-hmm.
But you nailed it early on. Like, if we really do believe this, how in the world can anything else be more important?
Mm-hmm.
But I find myself frantically moving from thing to thing, and then the day goes by and no conversation again. So,
I can relate to that, and it's what happens with our players. We don't get enough conversation with them, so we make sure that there's a walk. There's a walk scheduled. It's on the calendar. We're doing it at a certain time. Um, and we've got to find ways to work those walks into our schedule with the Lord too. And maybe another thing to add to that topic too is just to reframe in our mind, what are our expectations from prayer? Do I have to be on my knees with my fingers in this position or hands in this position, or is that the only type of prayer? Or there's a story in the Bible. Nehemiah is getting ready to ask the king that he's working for a really hard ask, and basically from the moment he gets some news to the moment that he speaks to the king, it says that Nehemiah prayed. Well, that had to be like a 2-second prayer. It's God help me. That's a prayer right there. So can we reframe our expectations a little bit? It'd be awesome to have a 30-minute block set of time that's just quiet conversation with the Lord. But that doesn't happen very often. But can we maybe in the car, on the way to across campus, are there other opportunities where short conversations, so that we're always mindful of God's reality and his presence and relationship in our life? That's, it's maybe helpful to think about it. It doesn't just have to be those huge blocks of time that are, in the closet, on my knees, hands raised, whatever. It doesn't have to always look like that. You can pray with your hands on the steering wheel too. In fact, that's when we probably pray the most.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I was thinking too, like, how often do we have those little 2-3 minute things, and then we immediately grab our phone and we just go through, like, maybe I use that time a little more wisely. And so a great reminder there, Coach. How do you build confidence in your players?
Yeah, so one of our things that we really try and emphasize is we want to be positive coaches as much as possible. So much of what we have to do in our teaching is correction, and that needs to be done this way, and that's not the right way to do it. And but we really want to strive for being positive whenever we get an opportunity. So that means reinforcing good things. So whenever you see something that's done right, to celebrate that, to measure that. I think a good phrase that I've heard over the years is, things that get measured get done. So we don't have the huge staffs that some large high major Division I schools do. We may have a bigger staff than a lot of high schools do, so we're somewhere in between. But we want to try and measure as many things as we can. So we've got things that we chart, ways that we display it, ways that we present it, ways that we celebrate it, to try and reinforce the things that we think are important and want to get done. And that hopefully then allows us to not dwell on and focus on the negative. So that, going back to, how do you reinforce confidence? Well, we want to build into guys the things that you do well. So instead of saying, so-and-so don't dribble, so-and-so catch and shoot or move the ball. You're such a good shooter, be ready to shoot it when you catch. If not, pass and cut, get yourself open, with your movement. So you're emphasizing the things that they do well and that you want them to do, rather than the things that they don't do well and you don't want them to do. Now, sometimes, it's not, they're not catching it. And so you still have to say the negative things sometimes. But our goal is to not make people afraid of the things they can't do, but bold in the things that they can do, and to really get ownership in, hey, this is your strength. Do that. Do this really well. Some guys are special at different things. Some things get celebrated naturally, socially, communally, that aren't the whole picture of basketball, but it's the stuff that makes we're not on Sports Center that often, but you got your Sports Center, and even just walking the halls in high school, who scored the most points? Everybody's seeing that. Well, who set the screen to get that guy open? Who made the pass to get that guy open? Who's doing the other things that make that happen? Can we celebrate those things so that people are recognizing that? I think that breeds confidence. And then, if we can measure those things, show those things, we've got a 2K board on our wall that is like the NBA 2K video game. They announced the ratings, LeBron James gets it. Well, we measure a bunch of stuff, and then we rank all the guys, and then we got ratings. And so the hope is that the bottom guy that's maybe not getting as much playing time is able to see himself move up from the 14th to the 13th spot or the 13th to the 12th spot. He's got some motivation to, hey, if I can just work on these things, I can improve, and you can see it. And the guys at the top, hey, I want to stay at the top. You need to keep doing these little, quote unquote, little things to maintain, what we expect. We expect all these things to be done, not just the guy that scores all the points, which is an important part of basketball. Somebody needs to score some points. But there's a lot of things that go into that. So emphasizing the things they do well, measuring the things that we want done so that we can reward and celebrate the good rather than dwelling on the negative all the time, and allow us to be more positive coaches. I think those are things that we try and do, and I've found to be somewhat effective.
I think it's a great reminder for us to focus on so many of those don't statements. If we take a second and think our way through it, we could easily switch it to a do statement. But that is received so differently in our players. The don't statements can put them in a box, can cripple or affect their confidence in a negative way, can affect the relationship between coach and player. The do statements, like you said, are a way, and I'm not talking pie in the sky, everybody's great and nobody makes mistakes, but teaching from that positive stance. I think you allow them to take more chances, be more creative, more courageous, like you said, or bold. I dig that.
Yeah, that's a good point too, because part of building confidence is you've got to not freak out with every mistake. There's certain things we can't allow to continue, but mistakes are going to happen. So us as coaches have got to expect that, allow some room for that, particularly in practice, particularly early in the season. Not that it doesn't get corrected, but not in a demeaning way. Like, we've got to learn from this. We've got to view ourselves as teachers, and not demean players for mistakes. But mistakes are going to come. Yeah. We've got to play through that. I've yet to see a game at any level that's 100-0. We're not holding anybody to 0. That's not the way this game is played. So we need to not be surprised by that and allow some room for that, especially with young guys. This is going to happen. That's okay. It's part of the process.
Majority of mistakes aren't coming from lack of focus. Like, right. In my opinion, I think they're coming from a player playing out of control, maybe trying to do what we're asking them to do, but at this point at a speed or at a level they're not capable of. But that's like, we'll keep encouraging them to get there. But most likely mistakes are coming from players being timid, holding back, second guessing. And I think that is directly related to the response that they have either heard from us or feel like is going to come from us. So in a big way, all the mistakes that we have that happen in games and practices and how we deal with them, I think that directly contributes to the frequency of them.
Yeah. And I tell myself and our staff and our players all the time, like, I don't think we've got selfish guys that want to lose. Like, if guys are making mistakes or somebody does something, maybe that wasn't the right shot or what, they're not doing it because they're trying to lose. They're not doing it because they're really selfish. They're trying to do right, and it just wasn't the right play. And so not turning it into a moral mistake, and recognizing like, hey, this is something to learn from. Can we get a little bit better at making these decisions? As opposed to, oh, he's so selfish. We've got to avoid that type of language in our, coming out of our mouths.
I love the 2K board idea. We do a skill rating system here at Faith, but I just have the all-time winning scores that can change and fluctuate in our hallway, but not a current board with all the guys. And we'll do it a few times. Do you ever share that with other people as far as what you guys chart, how you do it? Do you share that?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Okay. And it changes. I mean, we've tweaked it this year from last year a little bit because we're always trying. Analytics and measuring things of whatever type is always, it's just one tool in the toolbox. And you want to, what are the things that are really the most important? We don't have the ability to measure every single detail. But what are the things that most directly correlate to the big picture goal of what we're trying to do as a team? And so, we've adjusted those, the things that we measured year to year, as we're always trying to tweak it and get it a little bit better.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
We talked a little bit early on in the intro just about individual skill work and how you value that, but how does that, especially in season practice, because I feel like for a lot of coaches, skill work is huge in the fall and the spring. They try to put a lot of emphasis on it, and then all of a sudden the season starts and it just tanks. It's all team. How does it work for you in your daily practice?
Yeah, so one thing that we've incorporated into our practices is having like skill stations, individual like fundamental things that we do throughout the season. I hesitate to use the words always and never, but we try to do them every day. And so it's things like jump rope. It's things like jump stopping and pivoting. We call it Kobe footwork. Kobe Bryant had great footwork. He knew how to shot fake and jab and front pivot and back pivot. And but if you're just jabbing and you don't call it Kobe Bryant, was good at this, then maybe they miss that this doesn't just relate to third graders. This relates to the highest levels of basketball. If whatever your talent level is, anybody will be better if they do the fundamental things well. So, we're trying to incorporate ball handling, footwork, and improving your footwork, and just some fundamental things like passing, shooting, pivoting. And we're doing those things daily throughout the season, even as when we're in the thick of it with our team and playing games. So trying to make sure that doesn't lag. And it's hard because when you get into the season, you're so focused on, hey, we got to do this for this game. Yeah. And you don't want to do too much. You got to save their legs a little bit. You got to manage that. But we just really believe that if we do it a little bit every day, then over the course of the year and over the course of a 4-year career, then it's going to really make a big difference. One day doesn't make that big of a difference, but you do it day after day after day after day after day, then we do believe that makes a huge difference over time.
Well, it's the reminder of, in February, we don't want 2 more plays. We want our 2 more players. Like we want 2 more guys to be better in February. And I don't know if that's a Don Meyer. It feels like a Don Meyer. But the idea is the walkthrough, the scouting, the shell drill, all of those things are important from, throughout the season. But their skill work, because during games, I mean, if you were to chart how much your best players will have the ball, hopefully the most in their hands, but then it starts to drop off after that. So how are we continuing to grow our players throughout the season? Can you really look your players in the eye and tell them throughout this season, you will be developed, you will improve as a player? And I think individual skill work helps that.
Yeah. And not just the top 5, everybody, the reason you're playing the game and on the team is because you enjoy doing this stuff and getting better and touching the ball and shooting. And if you never get a chance to do that, because maybe that's not the role where you're getting the most of that in game situations. But maybe by springtime, maybe by February, you'll be a little bit more ready, or maybe by next year, or maybe by, if we'll just keep working on it, and keep getting better. So, I think that's really important. And I've been a part of programs where I've worked before where player development was not a big thing. It was let's learn how to play together as a team. Let's play hard. Let's do this team stuff. And then I've been a part of programs where the player development was huge. And man, I just loved that. I bought into that. That's what I wanted. That's why I coach. And I thought, man, we need to find ways to incorporate this and make it happen, because it's just so important.
There might be a thing to do with style also, because the way you guys play, how fast you get up the floor, how quickly you're willing to take open threes in transition, and the style of play, I think that requires highly skilled players. when you're not joysticking and having control
Mm-hmm.
over where the ball goes every possession, when you have to really trust them to find a way through concepts, then they better have the skill work behind it, or else that system might be tough to coach.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point.
I think handling defeat will come
Mm.
throughout most seasons. And I think it's a time where I know I've made some of the mistakes I look back and wish I could do over. It's after defeats. It's
Mm.
not handling that, communicating that well. So how do you handle that with your team?
Yeah. Everybody, it's a common phrase to talk about, focus on the process. But I've found that to be so grounding as coaches and as teams. When I first started at DBU, we were starting a program from scratch. We weren't very good in those early years, or weren't as good at least. And it's really easy to lose multiple games in a row. And I've been a part of losing programs. And man, sometimes you just dread being around each other. You don't want to come in. The coaches are miserable. They're angry at everybody. The players are miserable. They're angry at everybody. And it starts to snowball, and it creates a really toxic environment that's no fun. So early on, that was just something that I just drilled was let's focus on the process. It goes back to what we talked about with coaching positively. What are we measuring? What are the things we want done? Did we do those things? Let's learn from it. Can we do it a little bit better? So if you lose, a couple of games in a row and you're on a little bit of a losing streak, it doesn't maybe snowball. You're just focused on how do we get better? How do you fix it? What's the how? We all want to win,
Yeah.
but how are we going to do it? And so as our program's gotten better, and now it's funny, I don't feel any less stress as we because now the expectations are higher. Now one loss feels a lot bigger than it used to. And so now those things really grate at you, but you just got to stay in the same mindset. Let's measure the things that we want to measure. Are we doing these things? Are we getting better at these things? Let's focus on the process. And I've found that helps create a more stable rhythm throughout the season. Because the thing too is if your program gets if you have a strong team, you can win a game and feel really good. And maybe you shouldn't. Maybe there's a lot of teaching and learning that needs to go on. And if you just celebrate and splash water and post on social media all your dances and stuff when you win, well, then the next game you lose. Well, we don't want to post that on social media. So we've created this expectation, and now you've got this roller coaster that you're on. And we've just tried to avoid that. We just tried to do it as best we can. Yes, we want to have fun. We want to enjoy it, but not too much.
Yep.
What can we learn? What did we do right? What did we not do right? And we're going to be a little down after a loss, but what can we learn? What do we do right? What do we not do right? And really try and stay focused on that. I think whether you're really good or really bad, I think that's important. And I remember one year, 10 or 12 years ago, we had lost a game and we were on the bus, and everybody was quiet and depressed and sad. And one of our guys just stood up and said something obnoxious and silly, but then was just like, does anybody have more fun than the Patriots? And everybody busted out and the tension was gone, and now we're good and we can go eat and enjoy one another again instead of just stewing on the bus for hours. And so I don't know. I get irritated if somebody's too flippant after a loss, but
that's the hard balance right there.
Yeah, we try to not make it a miserable environment either. And so I think that's on us as coaches. We've got to set that tone. We've got to figure out how to not be flippant about it, but also not make everybody's life miserable too. The kids are actually probably more resilient than the coaches are. So if we set a good tone, they'll follow that lead, I think.
I love that idea of being grounded. Yeah, never too high, never too low. It's like perspective. You're never as great as you think you are, but you're also never as bad as you think you are. Mm-hmm. And if it sounds like from you that in practice, skill work, you're constantly teaching, you're not resulting on what's happening out there, then we can't do that after games, win or loss either. And I think that's why Tyler Costin is on this whole kick of eliminating post-game talks. I do very little post-game, but he's saying don't do it at all. Let them go eat pizza. let them be with their family, let them go home. It's already late. What are your thoughts on eliminating post-game talks altogether?
We've not eliminated, but ours are short. People would
Short.
be surprised at how short ours are, I think. And I've been a part of programs where it's, especially after a bad game or a lot. I mean, man, we're in the locker room for hours. I mean, literally.
We're going to fix
got
everything right now. Nobody leaves until we get this right.
And the truth is, your emotional reaction as a coach is often wrong.
Yeah.
Like, there's been so many times over my career that we go back and watch the tape and we're like, okay, it wasn't as bad as I thought. You know, there was these things good, and this was just an unfortunate bounce, and we got to correct this. And then the flip side is it goes the other way too. It oftentimes is not as good as you thought it was either. Like, hey, we got this great win. We beat this team that we thought was so good. And then you go back and watch the film and you're like, oh my gosh, how did we win that game? And so if you'll just not say too much until you have a chance to, I mean, I do this with refs. Like, I get upset about a call and I want to respond and I want to like text to the commissioner. And I'm like, I'm
scratching this guy. He's done.
Yeah. Watch the film. And then you're like, oh, he was right.
Yeah.
So, oftentimes a little time and perspective and the eye in the sky, the camera don't lie.
That's right.
So, seeing the video is helpful too.
Yeah, after losses, I can't wait to watch film, and not as I want to diagnose everything we did wrong. I think I've come to realize that most losses, when I watch it, I'll see really how close we were, how close we were. And again, it's that reframing of it. We're not so far away, and what did we do all these things wrong? Man, we did a lot of things right, and we're really close to taking that next step. I've been able to walk into the next day practice or meeting, second period, whatever, after watching film after a loss in a way better mood because instead of just going in there and blasting them, we go to the middle. I loved watching you play. Go with your parents, and then, man, I just feel better after watching film.
Yeah, well, that's good.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here. Balancing coaching and then also your family life. It's a huge challenge, I think, for all of us because we want to be excellent with the 12 to 15 young men that we feel like our sons and also helping their journey. But then, man, it was Coach Peeler. He said he has a sign in his garage when he drives in, he like a sign that says, this, like, you can't fail at this job or no one else can do this job, being being a part of your family, being the head of it. So how do you balance that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. When early on in my coaching career, when you're trying to get opportunities and find jobs and get a chance to do this, you grind and you work so hard because it's so competitive, and there's no test you can take as a coach to say so and so is a good coach. So our big thing in this profession is, hey, I work harder, and I was around a lot of guys that they would, it was a bragging contest to see who can work harder. I work harder, we work harder, and I was totally in on that. I was, I felt like I was the hardest worker, and nobody was outworking me. And then I was around a couple of people that worked harder than me, and at some point, it clicked in my head that, wait a minute, this is not something to brag about. Like, their marriage is falling apart, their kids have no relationship with them. This is too much. We've gone over a cliff, and so I consciously made a decision. I'm not going to brag about being the hardest worker. I don't want to be the hardest worker. I know some guys that are hard workers, and some of my friends think, that the hours that I put in are crazy or whatever, but we try and have what I call banker's hours. We're aiming for like 8 to 5. I'm trying to have dinner with my family. I'm trying to be home. Um, I'm trying to be there so that if we can have a family meal, I think that's one huge step, that if families would do that, that's really helpful. As awkward and hard as sometimes those meals are, because the kids are crazy and the conversations, not good, and people are rushing off here and there, but we try and make that happen. And we try and just set some time aside. You could see our family calendar. Our Sundays are dark shaded in, and it's like there is nothing happening on this. We are not putting anything on the calendar on these days except for our church involvement in the mornings, and then it's like, hey, we're just we're gonna be together, and be present in those times. So there's a few things like that we try and do. But the one thing that I learned early in my career was, yes, you got to work hard. You can't be successful at anything in life without a good work ethic, but you want to try and be efficient with your time so you're not spending unnecessary hours. What are the things that really need to be done? What are the things that it's okay if it drops? I'm still trying to learn how to be better at delegating things. I've got, guys or students that want to help. Can I train them in such a way that I can then trust them to do something that I otherwise would have done? That's always been a hard thing for me. I feel like I've maybe gotten a little better, but that's been hard. But just making that switch to say, I don't have to be the hardest worker. That's not the goal. The goal is to do our job well, but to keep it in perspective. And growing up, one of my heroes was like Tom Landry. Here's a man who God comes first. For him, football was God, family, and then football. And I thought, man, that's great. He's got his priorities in order. Well, it wasn't until I was a little bit older that I realized, well, yeah, that's 1, 2, 3 in order, but there is no 4. Like, football is really big for him. Like, he's very invested in the football. He's not playing, softball and going golfing, and he's not the best golfer in the world. He's really invested in the football, but his relationship with God is bigger than that. His priority of his family is bigger than that. And then he really invests heavily in his football. And so that's been a lesson for me too, is to say, okay, I want these to be my priorities in this order, but I know I want to do this one really well too. So I got to make sure that I'm doing these even better, and I've got to cut everything else out. I can't watch a lot of movies. I can't binge watch. I can't spend all my time, entertaining myself with social media. I've got to do these things well and let everything else drop off. So I'm a terrible golfer. I am a very, very below average tennis player. I don't play softball leagues or whatever. I've worked some exercise in, but it's intentional and it's not superfluous. It's not just being wasteful with my time. And I think that's how you can allow that family time to grow and to really be a priority, is by cutting out the other things.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to our job, to say, what really needs to be done. There's a lot of things that we could do, but what really is affecting what our job and mission and goal is, and leading these players and trying to, coach a basketball team. Are there some things that are just bells and whistles, that aren't necessary? And so trying to cut some of those things out, and just make every effort to be present as much as possible.
That's good. I wonder, in our most stressful times, when everything seems to be going wrong, basketball, family, if we really looked at those at that order, if it's out of whack. I would imagine most of the time when we feel overwhelmed, it's because basketball is at the top.
If we measure it by where we spending our most time, our most money, then I'm sure those things get out of priority a lot. And so that's just a good check.
I've known you for a few years, and a lot of coaches around DFW and know who you are, but after the speed round, we'll know you even better. So quick questions. First thing that pops in your head. You ready?
I'm ready.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
Vanilla.
How many hours do you sleep
each night, or do you need each night?
7.
Favorite basketball movie of all time?
I'm struggling. Hoosiers.
Yeah. It's the go-to. Yeah.
Yeah.
For high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
Shot clock.
You're strong there. I felt that.
Speed round.
Yeah. Texting or talking?
Ooh, my mouth says talking, but if you were to really follow me, it would actually be texting. If you would actually see what I do, not what I say. But I want it to be talking.
Yeah. Favorite holiday?
Easter.
In basketball, who is the GOAT?
Jordan.
Nice. If you could travel back in time, what period would you visit?
Reformation.
That's a good one. Your favorite place to travel?
Spain.
2 more. How many cups of coffee do you drink per day?
0.
Not a coffee guy at all.
No. Yeah, I used to tease and joke people that I don't do drugs. I don't drink coffee. But unfortunately, I do occasionally have a V8 energy drink, so I do drink some caffeine now. That's okay. My one occasional caffeine go-to, or some tea.
Can you count it though when it's in a V8? Can you
count it? If it's a serving of fruits and vegetables, and you understand all the ingredients. So tea, green tea or black tea, I'll occasionally get some caffeine. So I can't say what I used to say. I do have caffeine. I just don't like the flavor. I don't like the taste of coffee, so I'm not a coffee drinker.
Fair. Last one: Godfather, Star Wars, or neither?
Godfather.
Interesting, Coach. This was such a pleasure. Thanks for giving up. I mean, golly, an hour 15 of your time at this time of year too, and with your office being renovated, everything going on in your life. But I just thoroughly enjoyed getting to talk with you. Thank you so much for being authentic and just what what you're trying to promote at your school. Like, it's just really encouraging for someone like me.
Thanks, Coach. Yeah, I've enjoyed it.
Coach, if anybody's interested in any of the thing, even the cultures piece that you talked about with the life maps, or the 2K chart that you do, what's the best way for coaches to contact or reach out to you?
My email's on the dbupatriots.com website. It's just Blake F. F as in Flickner, F as in Frank, at dbu.edu. Blake F at dbu.edu.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi Podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.